The book ends with Scarlett deciding. It's widely believed that Margaret Mitchell based Tara on this house, Stately Oaks Plantation, a place she would have driven past almost every day.
She was born in 1900, and she was supposed to be this little debutante, and she was far from that. She actually wore breeches when that was not the thing to do. She had real short hair when women had long hair. She even smoked.
Heaven forbid.
She did. She was a little Scarlett O'Hara herself.
Okay.
Part of the enduring appeal of Scarlett has been her name. It's a colour associated with blood, sacrifice and sin, which is thoroughly appropriate to the trials of Scarlett as presented in the novel. The name Scarlett is crucial to the book, but things could have been so very different.
There was never any creature called Scarlett O'Hara.
Right.
There was no creature called Scarlett in the original manuscript. She was called Pansy back then. And in the early days, Melanie was called Permelia. Now, do you think if the story was today the saga of Permelia and Pansy, you would even be here?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No, that was a good call, changing her name.
I think one of the reasons Gone with the Wind has been such a success was that Margaret Mitchell set her novel during the American Civil War. Using historical events as the backdrop for the romantic drama gives these kinds of books an extra layer of fantasy and glamour, like taking a holiday in history. Historical romantic fiction, which recreates history from a present-day perspective, is perennially popular. Think of writers like Georgette Heyer, Philippa Gregory, Jean Plaidy.
Particularly in the 21st century, we are so busy, we are so fractured. Our attention span is so short that it is such a relief to go into a world where we have the time to take one particular story right through to the end. And all these historical signals are saying to us, you don't have to hurry. We're back in the horse-drawn age. We can take things as slowly as we want. And the slower we go, the more we savour them and the more we understand them.
Historical romantic fiction does something that historians often forget to do. It puts women at the centre of the story. As a student reading history, I probably got more sense of women's lives from the novels of Jean Plaidy than I did from any academic textbooks. Novels like The Shadow of the Pomegranate, which brilliantly tells the story of Henry VIII's divorce from Catherine of Aragon's perspective. But many people would cite Georgette Heyer, whose frothy Regency romances are currently enjoying a resurgence of popularity, as the brand leader in this genre.
She was a very strong, masculine woman. She smoked something like 60 to 80 cigarettes a day. And when you see photographs of her, she looks rather like a more masculine Margaret Thatcher. It's quite striking. But she created this tremendously feminine world.
Eleanor, darling, what a wonderful man. Wherever did you find him? He's bought you a whole carriage full of new gowns, and even some for me too. Look.
Full of muslins and damasks and frills and curly hair and handsome men.
Thank you, Lord Cardian. I'm sorry to put you to such inconvenience.
It cannot be helped. Let us go.
Georgette Heyer was a prolific writer, publishing 56 novels in her lifetime. Her novels are set in the past, but they are written with a present-day sensibility. Venetia, for example, was published in 1958, and although her heroine talks in the language of the time, some of the sentiments she expresses are anachronistic, to say the least.
You'd know about my orgies, objected Damerel.
Yes, but I shouldn't care about them once in a while. After all, it would be quite unreasonable to wish you to change all your habits, and I can always retire to bed, can't I?
Oh, you won't preside over them? He said, much disappointed.
Yes, love, if you wish me to, she replied, smiling at him. Should I enjoy them? He stretched out his hand, and when she laid her own in it, held it very tightly.
You shall have a splendid orgy, my delight. and you will enjoy it very much indeed.
I think her wit, her elegance, her plotting, her subversiveness, her rigour, and her comedy is absolutely immortal.
Well, a lot of people do think that Georgette Hare is pulp fiction or romantic rubbish or what have you, but they're not. They're really well written. People forget that. They're detailed, they're historically accurate, and they're quality. It's quality writing.
Georgette Hare is the comfort read. She's the person I like to take to bed with when I've got flu or I'm just feeling really shabby, because she makes you laugh. Her heroines are always really fun, and her heroes as well always get their comeuppance.
When I reread Georgette Hare for the 10th time, it lifts my mood, definitely. This is my comfort, this is my chocolate bar, this is my wine or cigarettes which I don't have. This is my addiction.
I wouldn't be too happy if I were you, Arthur.
Oh, why?
Well, it only seems fair to tell you that since my father's encouraged you to try to hang me with my first mistake, I intend to use the same rope to hang you.
The 80s meant many things. Bad pop music, dodgy fashion, and ambitious women.
I kind of hanker for the 80s when world domination was, what one did just while you were painting your nails.
The romantic heroine of the 80s was a powerful woman with helmet hair who wasn't for turning. She was, of course, Barbara Taylor Bradford's Emma Hart.
What's this?
Gargle with that 4 times a day. Never fails. Old Yorkshire remedy.
Bossy as ever, Emma. You are quite incorrigible.
She's very much a woman who can be ruthless in business, can be very, very tough, but she's not got a hard heart. She's tough, but she's not hard-bitten. And she's fair.
Well, the whole coordination on the second floor is a shambles. We've lost the point of the scheme. I'd like to see the buyer in my office in 20 minutes.
Yes, Mrs. Hart. When Barbara wrote Woman of Substance, it happened at exactly the right moment. That's the first thing. 1979, it came out, Margaret Thatcher came to power. I mean, it was perfect timing. The whole thing, the Woman of Substance was happening. The market was ready for it.
A Woman of Substance is an epic saga which takes place over 60 years. It tells the story of a penniless kitchen maid, Emma Hart, who becomes one of the richest women in the world.
I think A Woman of Substance will always have an audience because it's very much about a woman finding that she can do things and then jolly well doing them. And saving what is effectively her entire family. I think an awful lot of women relate to that and probably always will.
That book is a Bible today for women in every country where it's been published. And some of them even keep it on the bedside table and go back to it and look for a passage that they liked. But mostly it gave them courage.
The reader may be forgiven for thinking there is some resemblance between Barbara Taylor Bradford and her fictional creation Emma Hart. Barbara Taylor Bradford may not have a world-famous chain of department stores, but she does get her face on the stamps of Grenada, St Vincent and the Isle of Man.
I'm rather serious-minded about life, and I think that I write about women that really want to climb that mountain and not only get to the top of the mountain, but believe they can jump off and land safely without a parachute.
But does my book group still think A Woman of Substance is a Bible for would-be skydivers? Can 25 million readers possibly be wrong?
Now, I read this when I was a teenager and, I thought it was a gripping read. And, of course, I read it sort of in the early 80s, just at the point where Mrs Thatcher had become, the matriarch of the country. I read it now and I think, yeah, it's so much of its time. You feel there are shoulder pads on every page.
I found it incredible, absolutely incredible. I read the book, I watched the TV series, fell in love with Liam Neeson, and reading it now, in 2006, I think it's just a pile of rubbish.